The videos you are about to watch, or plug into your neural network, depending on the year, contains the amateur footage from a 7-day, 30-hour, 400-plus question interview with Carla L. Rueckert and Jim McCarty, recorded in 2014. These videos are intended to be secondary and supplementary to LL Research's channeled and written work. The subjects of these interviews, Carla and Jim, are two of the original 3 founders of the nonprofit organization LL Research. LL Research was officially formed in 1970 as an outgrowth of the research efforts begun in 1955 by Don Elkins. Over the course of 5 decades, 11 published books, 1,500 transcripts, and 1 cassette labeled Best Jams Mixtape Volume 1, LL Research has produced a considerable library of information on matters of spirituality, philosophy, and metaphysics, the heart of which is informed by experiments in channeling. As an ethical choice and a matter of policy, LL Research has, from the beginning, even before the internet, made its work available for free as a resource for the interested spiritual seeker. You can access all of this material at the library website, www.llresearch.org. As I mentioned before, these interviews were recorded in 2014. The following year, they were published in transcript form in the book titled Tilting at Windmills. That book is also available for free on the library website at llresearch.org. Each video in this series corresponds to one of the 30 chapters of that book. The interview is largely an investigation into the story of LL Research's birth, growth, and journey, along with the personal paths of Carla, Jim, and Don. The organization's biography and the personal journeys are 2 categories which intertwine and merge in so many places that extricating one from the other is challenging. Better it is to take in the scope of both, for to understand the human story is to better understand the story of LL Research. This historical document will certainly be interesting to some, but not objectively interesting to all. Neither now nor at any future point do I attempt to convey that you should pay attention to these people and their work. This footage is intended neither to persuade nor to entertain the reader. It is a simple record of available testimony. The interviews presuppose that you, the viewer, are already familiar with the work of LL Research. In 2002, I met Carla and Jim at a conference in their hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. A year later, I relocated to Louisville to participate in spiritual community in their home. A few years afterward, in 2005, I became Carla's administrative assistant at her invitation and insistence, a role which soon thereafter grew into more or less running the organization in collaboration with other loved ones. 10 years later, I became LL Research's director, a responsibility I later split with Austin Bridges as co-director. I've spent some of those years living with Carla and Jim, and all of those years knowing them, learning from them, and working alongside them in a spirit of shared mission and service. Carla and Jim are many things to me. Most significantly, they are friends and fellow travelers along the dusty path of spiritual seeking. They are 2 people I genuinely love. This doesn't mean I never disagreed with them, but rather that I see and cherish them for who they are. This is stated up front so that you, the viewer, understand where from I, the interviewer, come. On one hand, my personal familiarity is a great strength. No one else has stood for so long at the very point where LL Research, the law of one philosophy, their work, and their personal lives intersect. On the other hand, an interviewer with a more detached, journalistic approach may have questioned more insightfully, or critically, or in directions I just didn't think to pursue. Further, I did not ask questions from the position of a skeptic, though I feel that the heart of LL Research's information is exquisitely congruent with the message of oneness or non-duality that mystics have reported through the ages, I understand that some of the claims within this body of work about the way the universe works simply cannot be proven by present means of verification. My aim, therefore, was not to ask with an intent to challenge Carla and Jim to prove anything, nor to convince anyone of the veracity of what transpired in their lives. I interviewed two people so that they might share the stories of their lives that they actually lived and the work they actually undertook for the benefit of the already interested reader, both new and old, myself included, as I find their work of great personal significance on my spiritual journey. Any who have read Carla's writing or heard her talk will know almost immediately what a powerful and eloquent thinker, writer, and speaker she was. Carla seemed to sit atop a bottomless well of inspiration that took only the slightest provocation for its clear waters to stream forth through her communication. Though that clarity still shines in this interview, this footage doesn't represent Carla at the height of her powers. Unbeknownst to us, Carla had just over 8 months remaining in her incarnation. By the point of the interview, she had been bound to a hospital bed for 3 years with a painful, open wound on her lower back from a spinal fusion surgery that refused to heal. You will notice Carla struggling at times to keep her eyes open. This, a combination of the medication she was on and of even greater sedative effect, listening to me. Yet through this medical hardship, Carla still radiated light and love, question after question. The interview was one long conversation that took place in one take over several days. There were no redos, no mulligans, no scripting of any replies, just an organized Q&A. Jim did a quick read-through of the questions before I asked them. Carla, on the other hand, had no advanced knowledge of the questions. And because of this, you may see that Carla's answers span the vast landscape of spontaneity and potency, a balance of depth and beauty and humanness. Beginning on Monday, July 21st, 2014, we met in Jim's bedroom, Carla in her hospital bed, Jim sitting alongside her in the same hardback wooden chair he sat in for the raw contact, the room appearing the same for the interview as it would on any other given day. With the summer sun streaming through the windows, we progressed through the questions over the course of 7 consecutive days. Most of the questions were devised in the couple of weeks leading up to the interview, but many times questions were asked impromptu. The entire exchange was captured with a digital audio recorder and filmed as a labor of love by our very good friend and videographer, Ken Wendt. Throughout the course of this interview, I ask you to please be mindful that this interview does not intend to uphold Carla, Jim, or Don as perfect beings who should be placed upon a pedestal and emulated. Where we move into their personal interpretation and application of the material during this discussion, remember that what is shared is opinion only and is not to be construed as infallible or the final word on these subjects. It is not to their personalities that they would direct your attention, but rather they would direct you to the principles contained within the law of one philosophy. Those principles encourage the authentic discovery of who you really are, as Eckhart Tolle would say, beyond name and form. The fundamental tenet of the law of one is that self and creator are two ways of saying the same thing. In other words, and in accordance with the vision disclosed to mystics, all is one. But words and intellectual formulations can never capture or contain the truth, no matter how precise, profound, or perfect. That is the case whether from Confederation sources, Jesus, Buddha, or other enlightened beings. Why? Because you are the living truth that you seek. You are beingness itself. You are the mystery. You are the creator. You always have been. Consequently, LL Research's desire is not that the information in this or any of its books become dogma. It is offered only that it may be of some small aid to you as a resource on your own journey of seeking. The dispassionate spirit with which they and the organization have always offered this information is one of non-coercion and non-proselytism. Carla, Jim, Don, and Confederation sources have always encouraged the seeker's own discrimination. Naturally, they would be delighted if the information was of any help to you, but suggest leaving it behind without a second thought if there is no resonance. They emphasize the relative unimportance of this interview in light of the grand mystery which beckons each of us onward in the seeking of truth.